afternoon. My name is Jerry Miller, and thank you kindly for joining us. It's the I Love CVille Show on a chilly December day. Good Lord, less than 11 days before Christmas, right around the corner. Happy holidays to you and yours. A lot we're going to cover on today's program. We'll talk Maurice Jones resigning as city manager in Chapel Hill. He was the former city manager of the city of Charlottesville. We will talk on today's program Tony Elliott. Tony Elliott, the head football coach at the University of Virginia, is catching a tremendous amount of heat right now. And a lot of that heat is now centered on the attrition the program is facing. I'm going to take a unique perspective when it comes to Tony Elliott on today's show. We'll also talk more news from Champion Hospitality Group. I mean, the brand and the owner cannot stay out of the news cycle. Have you noticed that, Judah?
Yeah.
They cannot stay out of the news cycle. Cannot get out of their own way. That topic on today's program, I'm going to take the perspective of an unemotional observer who uses reasonable, common sense analysis to assess what is happening from an employer standpoint, an employee standpoint, a past, present, and future standpoint on today's show. I also want to talk about the cottage we highlighted on Hinton Avenue yesterday. We posted it roughly 24 hours ago, this cottage, and it's gone viral, man. Since we posted it, over 200,000 unique IP addresses have seen this listing on Hinton Avenue. $1,100 a month asking price. I want to ask you this question. Why have the responses to this cottage been so emotional and full of anger and disenchantment and hatred? That question on today's show. We'll give some props to the Clifton in Keswick. If you guys want a fantastic place for date night, for happy hour, to celebrate these holidays, the Clifton in Keswick is your choice, man. The food is dynamite. The atmosphere is elegant, intimate, and the service is A++. The Clifton in Keswick. Consider it for the holidays and for weddings and events. Tell your friends, look at the screen now. Here are the headlines we're going to cover on today's show. You, the viewer and listener, can help shape the discussion by offering perspective in the comment section. We're live on literally every social media platform known to mankind right now. And your thoughts shape the direction of the show. First, we got items of the news, items out of the notebook we got to get out first, right? I want to get out the Mo Jones news. This broke yesterday. Maurice Jones has resigned as the city manager in Chapel Hill. He worked as the city manager in Chapel Hill for 4.5 years. I would expect you will see what I'm talking about now in the newspaper in the next couple days, on the TV stations and radio stations tonight or tomorrow. Maurice Jones spent a good chunk of his professional career as the city manager here in Charlottesville, Virginia. He at one time was a sportscaster for NBC 29, my former employer, on Market Street. Maurice Jones did a lot of good things in Chapel Hill. And I'm going to read from chapelborough.com, the daily local news source for, one of the daily local news sources for the Chapel Hill community. Maurice Jones arrived in Chapel Hill in 2018 after serving as the city manager in Charlottesville. He was unanimously approved to replace the retiring city manager, Roger Stansel. Over the course of Maurice Jones's 4.5 years, the town of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, this is home to the Tar Heels, embarked on several major projects. The local government placed a focus on its urban planning for downtown Chapel Hill, launched partnerships with UNC and private developers for the ongoing reimagining of East Rosemary Street, and most recently, Chapel Hill also adopted a complete community framework earlier this month based on recommendations from urban planning consultants to approve and build projects that are more connected and environmentally conscious and more dense. The similarities of what Maurice Jones is trying to or has implemented as city manager excuse me, in Chapel Hill is very similar to the projects and developments and turn of events and what Charlottesville is hoping to do right here. Many similarities between Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and the city of Charlottesville. In fact, I'm going to call up Chapel Hill's profile. Chapel Hill is a town of a population of 62,000 people. City of Charlottesville is right at 50,000. Chapel Hill is a town that has limited area. It's 21.3 square miles. Charlottesville's 10.2. Chapel Hill has a huge tie to UNC, the University of North Carolina. Charlottesville, a huge tie to the University of Virginia. Chapel Hill, very much dependent from an employer standpoint on medicine, medical. Chapel Hill, very noteworthy for an emerging technology scene. Chapel Hill struggling with gentrification issues, housing affordability issues. Chapel Hill struggling to maintain its brand identity and its the essence of what Chapel Hill's been known for a couple of generations. I mean, these are the same struggles and characteristics of Charlottesville. Almost identical in population. We're talking a difference of 12,000 people. From a surface standpoint, 10.2 square miles Charlottesville, 21.3 square miles Chapel Hill. Two prestigious universities. UNC is a damn good school. Very difficult to get into, especially out of state. Affordability issues with housing. Chapel Hill becoming very white and affluent. Charlottesville becoming very white and affluent. Technology and STEM and finance and venture capital, jobs in those spaces of business are transforming the identity of Chapel Hill. That's what's happening in Charlottesville. Maurice Jones is a common denominator for both. And not just a common denominator for both, the top executive for both. When you're the city manager of a jurisdiction in a weak mayor system, Charlottesville's a weak mayor system. Richmond is a strong mayor. Mayor Stoney runs Richmond. The mayor of Charlottesville, Lloyd Snook, does not run Charlottesville. The city manager does. So the CM has power, determines where a jurisdiction is going in a weak mayor system. Maurice Jones would be a fantastic guest for this network. After 4.5 years, he's resigned as the CM in Chapel Hill. And you know, you realize when you get to that level of the professional totem pole, you're talking a job that's paying you $250,000 a year, benefits, you know, excellent benefits, perks. When you're in local government and you're in this position of power, you're at the top of the totem pole. You're at your ceiling. You can't go any higher professionally with that jurisdiction. Your shelf life in each jurisdiction, I've learned, is very short. Last week we learned in America, the United States, the average police chief is the chief of police of their respective jurisdiction for 3 years. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that. In America, a police chief is generally on the job for 3 years on average before they go to a different job. City manager, while Maurice Jones spent, can you look up how long Maurice Jones was the city manager? In fact, I could probably figure that out. Maurice Jones, Charlottesville. Let's see how long he was the city manager in the city of Charlottesville. I'll give you that. Maurice Jones served as the city manager of Charlottesville, Virginia from December 6, 2010 to July 31, 2018. So Maurice Jones was on the job for basically 7.5 years in city of Charlottesville. He was on the job in Chapel Hill for 4.5 years. When you get to that level of management and power and pay when working for a government, your time runs up. And just like a head football coach, you want to go to the next job, resign, or find a different employer before the natives get restless and they force you out, and then you have to speak for why you were forced out in your next job interviews. In this particular circumstance, while resigning, and by all accounts in Chapel Hill, Maurice Jones has done a fantastic job. And I think Maurice Jones did a fantastic job in Charlottesville. I truly mean that. But if you're able to resign before the natives get restless, the job interviews at your next place of employment go that much easier. Because you don't have to speak to why did you lose the job. Instead, you could say, I chose to resign for these reasons. You control the narrative. You're managing perception, your personal brand. So we'll see what's next for Maurice Jones. This man has tremendous insight on Charlottesville and Chapel Hill. And the plight of both communities, the characteristics of both communities are very similar. I want to applaud Maurice Jones for 4.5 years in Chapel Hill, after 7.5 as the city manager in Charlottesville. He has had a tremendous rise since he was a sportscaster at NBC 29. All right, a couple of other items out of the notebook. Tony Elliott, Virginia football. And then we'll get to Champion Hospitality Group, and then we'll get to 804 Hinton Avenue. I want you guys to give the show a like and a share, and I want you to tell your friends that we're talking the topics on screen. Look at the screen now and let folks know what's coming up. Send them a text and let them know to watch. It's no secret that the head football coach at the University of Virginia, Tony Elliott, is under tremendous fire right now. The first season at UVA went terribly. He had a boatload of talent, and the team performed poorly. He had an offense that was ready to be one of the best in the conference. But because of an inexperienced offensive line, and because Tony Elliott chose to implement his system, a pro-style system, as opposed to utilizing a system that best fit the current roster, the offense sputtered, and it sputtered horribly. And as a result of these struggles, we're seeing a tremendous amount of attrition from the program as key players, including our star linebacker, a 3-time All-ACC player, and including our record-setting quarterback, have now entered the transfer portal and saying, peace out. They're hitting the road, Jack, and they're saying, we don't want to come back to Charlottesville anymore. Now, a lot of people on the socials are saying that Tony Elliott is the wrong guy for the job. He's not the right leader for the job. He should be he is not the choice for head coach. And while that is to be determined, I'd like to offer some perspective that perhaps is not being considered. We should not underestimate the impact this mass shooting had on the football team. When you lose 3 of your brothers in the fashion they were lost, that's going to have an emotional and physical impact on football players, on teenagers, and on young men. And while the attrition with this football roster has been significant, to say it's Tony Elliott's fault would be unfair. You have a football team that is a part of an academic institution that is rigorous, challenging, and undoubtedly puts schoolwork and grades before performance on the gridiron. When it comes to football, you have so many players on the roster that an academic barrier is felt first and foremost in this sport when compared to any other one. There are a lot of headwinds working against Tony Elliott. Academics is certainly one. The academics at UVA, when compared to Clemson, are night and day. The mass shooting has worked against Tony Elliott. He lost the final 2 ball games of the season. They should have been canceled. I was a proponent of canceling them all along. He lost a lot of practice time, and he lost, most importantly, a lot of opportunity to bond as men with the players on his roster. As a first-year coach, you don't have the connection that a coach that's in his 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, you get my point, may have with his players. So losing any face time or any bonding time, any time in the weight room, any practice time, any film room time, any time in the cafeteria is significantly more impactful for a man who is less than 1 year on the job. There was no tie these players had to Tony Elliott because he did not recruit them and they barely knew him. And whether you want to admit this or not, and this is a very tough topic in conversation to have, I think there's some folks around here that have beef with Tony Elliott because he's a black head football coach. And that may be an awkward conversation to have, but that's the facts. And I think he's being given a shorter runway because of that. And it's disappointing that still that's the case in 2022, but let's cut to the chase. It's still the case in 2022. The man just finished his first season. He dealt with a mass shooting with his team. And you have alumni and fans chomping at the bit to fire this man. In 2022, racism can show its face in very DL or under the radar ways. And it is no longer in 2022 calling folks nasty names to their face or preventing entry to businesses, bathrooms, and public transportation. But today's version is quick triggers when it comes to employment. A lack of patience for a position that pays millions and millions of dollars a year. And whether we want to admit that or not, that's happening with some folks around this fan base. Give this guy a shot. And if a couple years it's still not performance, then he should go. But to say that 10 games in a rigorous academic setting in the shadows of a mass shooting is the foundation for firing someone is BS. All right, 2 other topics. I have a hard time even talking about this topic. Judah, let's welcome Judah Wickower to the show. Here's our director, Judah Wickower. Look, I have a hard time even talking about the topic of Champion Hospitality Group and its proprietor, its CEO and founder, Hunter Smith.
Yeah.
Because it's a small business. Because it's not only a small business, because it's a business that's in Charlottesville, in a community that I love.
Mm-hmm.
Because I understand the challenges of owning and being a founder of a small business. I'm one myself.
Yeah.
And because the small business, Champion Hospitality Group, is clearly in a tough state. And it's not, I don't want to kick a dog when it's down. But some of the practices that are being implemented or utilized or employed by this small business seem to be, at best, and I'm choosing my words very carefully for you here, Hunter. At best, shaky in their decision making.
Yeah.
At best.
Yeah, I mean, you can't put it better than that.
At best, shaky in their decision making. I'll offer a timeline. And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, the news from yesterday, and the response from employees, the thread that's emerging on Reddit. All right. So you got a man, and Hunter, that has an idea of launching a company. And that company is Champion, a local brewery. One of the first local breweries in the area. I'm not saying the first. I'm not saying the second. I'm not even saying the third. But I'm saying since Hunter launched Champion, a lot other of breweries have opened. Certainly more have opened after he launched than before. Yeah. One of the first as a result. He launches a brewery and he does it in a building that people are like, what do you're opening up a brewery in a beat up building, basically under a bridge, not on downtown, not in Belmont, next to Frensham Court.
Yeah.
What's going on? but he had vision. He had hustle, and he had chutzpah. He saw an opportunity, and it worked out. And this tap room, right in the middle of Belmont and downtown Charlottesville, in the shadows of Friendship Court, had a personality to it.
Yep.
And a spirit. It was a place where people fresh off work could get there with their sleeves rolled up and the top button on their button down, untucked out of their jeans, fresh off work, having a cold missile, to metalheads, to live music lovers, to the Belmont early 30s family walking their kids and their dog, to the single, to the date night. It was just a comfortable place.
Yeah.
I thought the Missile was a damn good flagship beer. I still like the Missile, Hunter. I like some of the new beers he's introduced, the shower beers and Curtis Shaver's words, dank and crushable. Things were working out. Seemed to have the Midas touch. Making beer, the demand is off the charts. You need to expand. You get the Missile facility or the Missile production, whatever he calls it, in Hogwaller. Right next to Decipher, where Decipher is now. Things seem to be moving and shaking. You get some distribution, some distro. You get on the shelves of grocery stores. The brand had the connotations of the Midas touch.
I think he believed it too much. Believed his own press.
Punch drunk with his own press. Next thing you know, the partnership with Wilson Ritchie. Love Wilson Ritchie, friend of the program. Opens up some restaurants. Restaurants include Champion Grill in Stonefield. Brasserie, I still can't even say it. I don't understand this brand.
Brasserie Saison.
Brasserie Saison. Brasserie Saisette.
I think it's Superette.
Never understood the concept of that. Passiflora. Champion Ice House in Gordonsville with Craig Hartman. A coffee shop on High Street next to a construction zone. The merger with Reason Beer. The partnership with Laura Fauner. A partnership that initially started with her running a food truck called Dumpling. And that has now evolved into Siren in the old Shabine location. He weaves into this hospitality group heavy hitters. Not only Wilson Ritchie, J.R. Hadley, a part of this at one time. J.R. Hadley of Boylan Heights fame. Loved J.R. Hadley, friend of the program. Laura Fauner. Paul Manning owns Gordonsville. Of the PBM brand, baby formula. Owner of the building in the Ice House. Craig Hartman, Barbecue Exchange. Outside investor money. Family money. Significant amount of employees responsible. He is. So I handle this topic with white gloves, delicately. Because I'm empathetic of the plight of a small business owner.
The difficulties involved.
And the difficulties involved as one myself. But what I am not empathetic, or what I do not stand for, or what I have major beef with, and what needs to be shouted from the tips of Carter's Mountain, Wendell Woods Mountain, is how employees and team members, long-standing employees, some who have been there almost from the beginning, were treated. I don't care the size of the town, whether it's one as big as Manhattan or Los Angeles, or one as small as Charlottesville, to treat the employees from a payroll standpoint, or a notification on the door that you no longer have a job and the restaurant is closed standpoint, Champion Grill.
Yeah.
That is
Inexcusable.
inexcusable, disingenuous, dishonest, wrong.
Yeah.
And in a nutshell, you have someone who extended and expanded too quickly,
Yeah.
was not on site to see difficulties,
Or maybe didn't care.
was not paying vendors, perhaps more interested in brand image on social than on the day-to-day ops of the business. And the people that felt the pain were the team members.
Yeah.
And yesterday, news posted on the socials for Champion that had everyone saying, dude. And there's no doubt in my mind, the announcements that were made on the Champion Facebook page and on the Instagram were done in conjunction with a professional PR person. I would imagine most likely Mary Jean Jaggers of Jaggers Communication helped craft these statements on social and the strategy behind it. I'll read the posts, and then I'll ask the questions that I have. And then you ask or offer perspective. This was yesterday on the socials. I'm excited to share that Champion Brewing Company and Reason Beer are joining forces with beverage platform, is it Bevana? B-E-V-A-N-A, I would imagine it's Bevana. The platform will handle our distribution alongside brands such as Highwire Brewing, D9 Brewing Company, and Updog Kombucha. The partnership with Bevana also means getting back together with their master brewer, Levi Duncan, who previously worked for Champion and helped to create many of Champion's iconic beers. Levi is a world-class brewer and one of my favorite people. I could not be happier to work together again. Champion's tap room will remain open, serving the Virginia beer community and offering the high-quality experiences that have always defined our brand. Small batch and limited releases will continue to be available, as you'll be able to purchase Champion and Reason packaged beers wherever you buy independent craft beer. We will work together with Bevana to create new recipes and to continue Champion's growth in the years to come. Olive Champion and Reasons packaged beers will also be available for delivery through Bavana's online store, which ships to 42 states and Washington, D.C., so that you'll never have to be without your favorite beers no matter where you roam. Signed, Hunter Smith, CEO and founder of Champion Beer. Oh. My primary business is brand management, an advertising agency. Perception management is the essence of an advertising agency. This press release is not the first iteration of what you offer the community. The first iteration you offer the community is an apology. An apology to the employees that have lost their job at the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And an apology to the employees that have seen checks bounce. And an apology to the vendors that are either unpaid or seen their checks bounce or have been paid late. In this press release, there's been no mention of the employees.
Yeah.
No mention of the Reason tap room and what's going to happen to it. No mention of the Reason staff and what's going to happen to it. No mention of the Champion brewing staff, the people that make the beer, and what's going to happen to them.
Yep.
No mention to the future of the restaurants that hang in peril. Champion Ice House.
Mm-hmm.
The word everyone is hearing, because this is one of the worst kept secrets in Central Virginia, is Craig is taking over the Ice House brand, Hartman. And it's just going to be the Ice House moving forward early next year. The word everyone's hearing, because this is one of the worst kept secrets in Central Virginia, is Laura Fauner, who is a hard-working, badass chef.
She's going to buy out her share of
Is
Siren.
going to perhaps take control of Siren and even paying team members out of her own pocket. What's going to happen to the Passiflora brand? How do you say it?
Brasserie Saison.
Why name it that? Brasserie, what is it?
Brasserie Saison.
Good Lord. What's going to happen to that? How about the staff at the coffee shop?
I didn't even, did it ever have staff?
Yeah.
Did it even open?
Yeah. It opened. It opened. The partnership with Bavana is the last resort solution. Because the money from the family has stopped being dished. And now the recipes are being brewed by a brand and business that's not local to the community that made the brand and business function and successful. And the lesson to be learned here, there are many. What have you learned? Because I've certainly learned something.
What have I learned by the actions taken here? Don't overextend yourself. Hold your employees in a little higher regard than disposable, whatever you want to call them. And I don't know. Know that without your employees, you don't have a business.
I think all the above apply. You and I we've worked together for over 10 years. And over those 10 years, it's been far from roses and sunshines.
Mm-hmm.
And like anybody and any people who spend this much time together, I mean, it's basically a work marriage. There's going to be beef. But one of the things in those 10 years plus, you would say that this dude's going to stand by me through thick and thin, and he's a loyal MFer. There's been numerous opportunities but you are honest and you work hard. And as a result, I am as loyal as you can get. People are not pawns on a chessboard.
Yep.
We're not playing with a car and a dog and a thimble on a board trying to pass go to collect $200. And if you want that mentality, you get into corporate rating or venture capital, or you go work for a public traded company in the C-suite or upper management. But in a community as small as this, actions like this will resonate and ring in the streets of Charlottesville and Albemarle County for years, if not decades to come.
No doubt.
I'm tired of this story.
It's sad.
I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the poor decision making and the fact that they can't get out of their own way. I'm tired of it. Tired of it. But when you get freaking 1,000 messages on your phone about this from team members and their families saying we don't have jobs at the holidays, or we can't deposit our checks, you feel compelled, because heavy is the head that wears the crown, to utilize the platform to highlight what's happening. And that's freaking what's happening right now. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this fucking shit. tired of this. All right. Let's get to... I just don't even... it leaves a gross taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
Hinton Avenue. Hinton Avenue went viral yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You and I have a feel, after doing this for so long, of what's going to go viral. You found this content. You put this on my radar. This is the second item in back-to-back weeks, or 2 items in about 12 days that you found that has gone viral. First night, Virginia. Now this. You got a cottage that's 258 square feet that's being marketed, listed, promoted for rent at $1,100 a month on Hinton Avenue.
Do we know if it even has heating? I know it.
There, did you see in the pictures up by the roof, there was a wall-mounted unit. And that wall-mounted unit, the new ones like that one, they're pretty powerful. And because that place is so small,
yeah,
it's going to heat and cool. Yeah, it'll heat and cool. So a lot of folks were talking about good luck with that in the summer and good luck with that in the winter because the roof is not insulated. With that wall-mounted window, it's not a window unit, with that wall-mounted HVAC unit that if you can show in one of the photos and you can put on screen. In fact, you should rotate on screen, if you could, the photos from yesterday, where the cottage is located, and then the photos from yesterday. And then if you tell me when the photos on screen of the where they can see the unit, I'll tell the viewers and listeners to look at the screen. All right, Judah's showing the photos of this unit. So look at the screen now, guys. This is literally next door, like basically next door to Southern Crescent. Like you can walk to Southern Crescent here in from this place in less than 30 seconds. So to say that you can stumble home from bars here is literally an understatement. This is within a 20-second walk, 30-second walk of Southern Crescent, the local, Kamal, Mas Tapas, right there. Bell, right there. It does have a shower. Like folks were asking about the shower. There is a shower there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a shower. What surprised me is the word vitriol.
That's a word.
Vitriol?
Yeah, like anger and spitefulness.
The vitriol,
kind of mixed together.
the utter vitriol when this was posted in the comments surprised me. I don't own this. This is not my property. I'm not representing the people that own this. They're not my clients. I have no personal or financial gain to this cottage. The vitriol surprised me. The vitriol surprised me. And what I learned about this, and I'll get to your comments, guys, here. This is what I learned. People are folks in this community, like citizens in this community, just like hardworking people in this community, are so dispirited with how expensive the community's become that they feel the community that they love and call home is pushing them. It's pushing them out of the community and saying, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
And this cottage has become a microcosm or a lightning rod for that emotional sentiment.
Yeah.
People realize that because of the pandemic, digital nomads, financial refugees, as Anonymous calls them, the expanding nature of the University of Virginia, admitting more students, which means they take more housing, the expanding nature of the University of Virginia from an employee standpoint, jobs that pay decently well, the fact that the data science school is about to open, which means more students and more jobs, the fact that the hotel and conference center is about to open on Ivy Road, which means more jobs, more people in the community taking up housing, the fact that Charlottesville City is only 10.2 square miles and landlocked, which means limited housing stock, the fact that 53% of Charlottesville City is zoned for single-family detached housing, which is the most expensive kind of housing, R1 housing, R1 zone homes. 53% of Charlottesville City is zoned for those type of housing stock, that type of housing stock. All these elements are contributing to an extremely expensive area to live. And the working class, the middle class, the upper middle class are scratching heads and asking, good night, does this town even want us anymore? Do we need to drive an hour to 45 minutes one way to work every day, or work a job and a half or 2 jobs to be able to live in a place we call home? And eventually that wears on you, and it snowballs, and it culminated with vitriol from the large amount of people that saw this on the I Love CVille Network in the last 24 hours.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either. But what I hate to admit, and what I hate to explain, and what's going to undoubtedly be frustrating for people, J-Dubs, is someone's going to rent this.
Yeah.
The rental history justifies the price point. On my Facebook page and many of the comment section that this listing's posted, you'll see the rental history. And it only takes one person to sign a lease and to justify the asking price. And when one person signs the lease and justifies the asking price with their John Hancock, then it was priced correctly and the market has spoken.
I don't know if I completely agree with that, but...
Make your case, please, sir.
Well, just because someone's desperate enough to pay the price that someone else is asking doesn't necessarily justify the price, I don't think. Yes, I know what you're saying, that the price wasn't too high that nobody would pay it, but that's like, I mean, it's like charging someone an exorbitant amount to feed their family. Well, of course they're going to pay it. They need to. Somebody may need that place and be willing to fork over that much money, and I don't necessarily think that that accounts for the price being right.
Adam Smith would say otherwise.
Adam Smith?
Everyone Google Adam Smith.
Is there a quote I should look for?
Take a look. Look. Whether people want to admit this or not, the invisible hand of capitalism is going to always win. I said this yesterday. In sports, There's only one undefeated team and only one undefeated individual, and it's not Tom Brady or LeBron James or Michael Jordan. It's Father Time. Father Time always wins. And in that world, our world, the world on the downtown mall and in Belmont and on Main Street and on West Main and in Ivy Square Shopping Center and in Earlysville and in Keswick, every effort that we want to do to create affordability in this community, whether it's upzoning, whether it's land trusts, whether it's tax abatements, whether it's rent control, they all get their ass kicked by the invisible hand of capitalism. No one's going to beat it. And when one person signs a lease and says yes to an $1,100, 258 square foot cottage, that's going to set the market. And it's going to influence and encourage other people who have similar basement apartments, backyard cottages, or spare bedrooms to chase paper.
Sadly.
And as other people are influenced to chase paper, because this cottage was rented for $1,100, that is the market. That is the market. It's not collusion. It's not backroom dealing. It's not old white people smoking cigars in a back room saying we're going to screw people. It's the domino effect of the invisible hand. The invisible hand is a metaphor used by the British moral philosopher Adam Smith for his theorized social mechanism according to which within the free market the domestic wealthy invest in their home country even if it's not the most profitable, guided by the invisible hand that drives the public interest. And I've said this, and people disagree with me, and I've had this conversation with Rory Stolzenberg, the planning commissioner. I've had this conversation with friend of the program Neil Williamson. I've had this conversation with back and forth with developer and land use attorney Nicole Scrow. I've had this conversation with friend of the program John Blair. I've had this conversation with socialist Matthew Gillikin. When you upzone, and that's what people are trying to do, Charlottesville City, and allow the city of Charlottesville, 10.2 square miles, to have more density by allowing landowners to convert their properties to duplexes or triplexes or quadplexes or backyard cottages or granny apartments with easier governmental circumstances. That's what upzoning is. Using easier government, using less red tape to create more housing stock. Because the zoning is looser. The byproduct of these efforts are not going to be affordability. The byproduct of these efforts are going to be housing in Charlottesville that is more expensive. People are sprinting to this area to learn, to work, to play. Sprinting. And they're doing it with bags of money after selling their Georgetown townhome for $1.5 million. They're doing it with paychecks tied to ISPs, internet service providers, and employers in large markets. And they're doing it with mommy and daddy's Black Card, Amex, Visa, as students at the University of Virginia. The additional stock is not going to create affordability. I've said it so many times. Time will tell. And to the owner of this property, I know who you are. I'm not going to blow up your spot. Is that called doxing?
Yeah.
I'm not going to dox you. I'm not going to blow up your spot. I know who you are. And to the realtors that are marketing this property, I know who you are. I'm not going to dox you. I'm not going to blow up your spot. Asking for something that is atop of the financial stratosphere, there is not anything wrong with that. You disagree with that, I believe.
Say it again.
The owners of the property and the realtors that are representing the owners of the cottage and the duplex in the front yard, asking for the top price point possible, I don't believe there's anything wrong with that.
No.
That's how the market works.
Yeah.
I thought you would disagree with that. You do not?
I'm of two minds. I understand, and I'm pro-capitalism, but at some point, I think we have to look at ourselves and our friends and our family and the people around us, our neighbors, and just the people in our cities, and say, is the dollar what I worship? Is that the end game? Is just to make the most money?
Someone put this in the comment section on my personal Facebook page. Greed is a powerful drug.
At one point, I was going to ask you if that was what the invisible hand was you were talking about, because everything you were saying sounded like you
essentially, that's what it is.
That's a shame.
The concept essentially means the pursuit of individual interests leads to
What's best for everyone, but I don't know that that's necessarily always the case. And I think a lot has changed since Adam Smith.
What? How so?
There weren't hedge funds buying up massive amounts of property, and
That's not happening here.
It doesn't matter that it's not happening here.
It is happening elsewhere, to your point. And not only are there hedge funds, and I apologize for interrupting.
That's just one part of what I'm talking about.
It's a very legitimate. I apologize for interrupting. Please finish your thought. I got to work on doing better with that. I apologize.
No, it's okay. I mean, that's like I said, that's one part of a lot of things that have changed. And I think we're dealing with a lot more than just, what year did you write that? It had to have been, he was died in 1790. So I just think that while it may still hold some weight, I think there are other considerations that maybe change the equation today.
Have you outlined those?
No, I mean it's not like I've written a book and I can pull it out and.
You just have to talk about them.
I know. I mean, I don't even know all of what goes into the changes. Like I said, one of the things is people buying up property. More and more people are. I mean, look at the glut of Airbnbs. And again, if you're buying Airbnbs in a market that can't support it, you're going to have a bad time. But at the same time, we're seeing more and more, not just companies, but people buying up properties to turn into whether they're just rentals or Airbnbs, which also brings down the number of properties that you can buy. and brings up the price of rentals and Airbnbs and ultimately the cost of housing, whether it's purchasing or renting.
I mean, Richmond City just loosened the red tape or cut the red tape when it came to Airbnb. Richmond City, the key piece of policy or legislation that makes Airbnbs difficult to scale.
Yeah, is that you have to live there for half the year.
You have to live in the Airbnb for 180 days. Richmond City did away with that piece of policy. Charlottesville City still has that policy in place where if you want to Airbnb your house, you have to live in that house 180 days a year. It essentially caps what an investor can do with an Airbnb. They can have two houses where on paper they can say, I live in this house for 180 days and this house for 180 days. But when they get to three, you can't do it. The math doesn't add up.
Yeah.
Richmond City said, why don't we get the real estate taxes that comes with housing and also the lodging taxes that comes with Airbnbs by doing away with the 180-day caveat. Basically what Richmond City did was, we're going to get the real estate taxes no matter what. If we do away with this 180-day rule,
we can get more.
We can get even more revenue from the lodging money.
And that may work for some places.
Well, the reason it works for Richmond is because they have an abundance of housing stock. The reason it can't work for Charlottesville City is because the stock is very limited in supply.
And if people saw that they could make tons of money by buying up housing and didn't have to live in the houses for half a year, then there would be less houses to buy.
I want to get to comments. Thought you did well today. Listen to these comments. Some reference you, and we will relay them live on air. I want to get to Deep Throat. The I Love CVille version of Deep Throat is a man who sends me DMs on Twitter who we have dubbed Anonymous. He says, a theory on why people get so mad about that listing. People have an intuitive understanding of how price formation works. It is not a supply curve and demand curve on a napkin. There is psychology involved. Listings can anchor expectations. A crazy high listing pisses people off because they understand it can induce panic among people who need to buy or rent and reset expectations upward. Ask any trader. It's called painting the tape. I'm going to respond, damn good comment. I'll read that to you again from Anonymous. A theory on why people get so mad about that listing. People have an intuitive understanding of how price formation works. It is not a supply curve and demand curve on a napkin. There is psychology involved. Listings can anchor expectations. A crazy high listing pisses people off because they understand it can induce panic among people who need to buy or rent and reset expectations upward. Ask any trader. It's called painting the tape. Excellent comment. Oh, this just came in via Twitter to the show. Jerry, I just saw that Keith Woodard's First and Main LLC has filed a lawsuit against Hunter for unlawful detainer, which translates to eventual eviction. Someone else assumed it could be one of the restaurants that Keith Woodard owns the real estate. Brutal. Keith Woodard is not someone I would mess with. I would not mess with that person. Would not mess with Keith Woodard. Would not mess with Alan Kajin. I would not mess with Ludwig Kutner. Kevin Higgins, the king of Greenwood. I don't think most reactions were anger-based at all. I think you have a show based on viewer feedback and you got it. It's a shed, basically, with that asking price. I think the reactions were pretty normal for a rental asking that rent, even if it were listed out of our area. I do think you are right, though. This may be a new normal. P.S. I would not want to stumble home and have to climb up that ladder to sleep under the uninsulated roof. We love when you watch the show, Kevin Higgins. You make the program better. And to the price point conversation, this was something shared yesterday by Anonymous. Tarleton Square, which is right over here. You know where that is?
Yeah.
I think it's on High Street. It's a few blocks away from Market Street. Tarleton Square, $1,200 a month for 440 square feet. However, he highlights that it's an actual building designed for human habitation.
I'm glad we've got that sorted out.
$1,200 a month for 440 square feet, Tarleton Square, although it's an actual building designed for humans to live in. Carol Thorpe gives Judah Wickhauer some props. She says, sounds like Judah is making the case for conscious capitalism. Good for him for walking the talk. Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
I'm going to say I read this live on air, and I will tag Judah Wickhauer. I just did that. James Watson, the king of orbit. The train has long left the station for affordable rentals within a 5-minute walk from the downtown mall. It's not ideal, but not that unusual, sadly. Pretty much every city has higher rent near food and entertainment. Albemarle County has a lot of undeveloped land between Barracks Road and Albemarle High School, as well as along the corridor between Target and Sam's Club. Only 5% of land in Albemarle County is available for residential development. I will clarify that. James Watson, thank you for the comment. Only 5% of Albemarle County is allocated for residential and commercial development. Commercial and residential development. And of that 5% in Albemarle County, because of the topography, not all of the 5% can actually be developed. Julian Freeman watching the program. She's the queen of Peloton. Julian Freeman makes the point in the champion announcements on Facebook and Instagram, they remove the ability for anyone to comment on the posts.
Hardly a surprise.
Which seems very sketchy to me, she says.
No doubt, but hardly a surprise if you're...
I agree with the sketchiness of
screwing
that.
all your employees.
Exactly. It was strategically done because of collateral damage and backlash from burned team members.
No doubt.
Bill McChesney, the mayor of McIntyre. Hinton Avenue is not an ADU, it's a converted garden shed or a playhouse. He also says the city manager's job is highly stressful and your employees keep changing. This is what I'm curious about. After we posted this listing on I Love CVille, and it went viral, what's going to be the response of Charlottesville City Hall when looking into or investigating the legality of that cottage?
I mean, as people have said, it's...
Just because it's been rented in the past doesn't mean it's above board.
It's also in the GIS.
I'd have to do some more research. Albert Graves, Warrior AG. We love you, Warrior AG. Warrior AG leaves this comment. That is your problem. You want You went to Clemson and got a football coach, and UVA should have gone to the Ivy League and got a coach where academics are paramount. Trying to keep up with the Joneses with the holier-than-thou academic standards always is going to be a problem with this university when it comes to keeping up with other Division I programs and winning like other programs. Warrior AG, I love when you watch the show. Albert Graves, I'm going to give you some props. Love when you watch the show. I read this live on air. I have 5 states watching the program now on our heat map. Juan Sarmiento, the king of transportation, the lead fleet technician at Charlottesville Albemarle Transit. Any business owner that closes or fires employees without any notice or severance. I don't know if I can read this, Juan, but I echo what you're saying. It's very, does not have good things to say about Hunter here. Hunter, things could have gone very differently for you here, sir, but I'm choosing not to go down that path. And I've done a good job of trying to offer some insulation for you throughout the last few weeks, man. But Juan says what he did with the note on the door at Champion Grill is the low of the low.
Yeah.
Kevin Yancey, I agree with your comments. All right, that's today's talk show. Today's Wednesday, December 14th. His name is Judah Wickhauer, and my name is Jerry Miller. It's the I Love CVille Show, where we have very real conversations about stuff that matters in this community. And it could be awkward, and some of the stuff we talked about today is. But it's conversations that need to happen, and they happen in long-form content where you can get nowhere else. Thank you kindly for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.